everything is the OutSystems platform, right?
Okay.
It's just tools that you access, but it's all one thing. Right? So we were in Service Studio, right? This is the primary development environment. It does visual modeling, and I'll dig into more of that. It generates XML. When we publish it, it goes through the code generation, outputs DLLs, ASPX, right? Sits on top of an IIS server. This metadata is a SQL database. It's where logging and other information goes, as well as can contain application data too. Right?
Okay.
We have, I'll walk through a little bit more of this development environment in just a minute. There's another development tool right here called Integration Studio. Integration Studio lets me do a bunch of other things, right? So you have existing SQL databases on premise now. If you want to tie into those existing SQL databases, I'll go into Integration Studio, and it's a wizard click through to say, point to a database and say, hey, I want to bring in these tables, and then they get to be used within the platform. Likewise, let's say, I don't know what makes sense in your environment, but let's say you've got some sensors or something that requires port-level communication, and you've already got a .NET library written to talk to some of these systems. Right? You can do Integration Studio. You can actually go into C# and write libraries, reuse some of your existing C# libraries for methods and logic and things like that, and import them, and they get used visually within the platform. And then the other two tools we've got are currently called Lifetime and Service Center. Lifetime is how you deploy between environments, as well as high-level performance monitoring. And Service Center is where you do low-level configuration, properties configurations, logging, error logs, general logs, web services, connection strings, all sorts of stuff. One of the things we haven't even mentioned is with every application that you build with OutSystems, right, cover non-functional requirements. Right? Typically, when you build an application, you do some error catching, right, and you might do some general logging. But you're not going to do granular level logging unless there's a problem to do performance metrics, things like that. Right? If somebody says there's a problem, my experience has been you make guesses. If you need to add some extra logging, go in, add some, hope you caught it, take 2 or 3 iterations until you're laughing. So this is probably typical, right? Yeah. So we've got all sorts of logs built in. So I've got detailed error logs, right, and I can see stack traces, etc. But more, I have general logs. So we log everything that takes 200 milliseconds or longer. It's logged asynchronously, so there's no application impact. But I can start going through and see, oh, look, this took 234 milliseconds. This took 230. This took 764. This took 1,061. So if I need to start troubleshooting performance issues, this is all built in. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to go back and add it. I've got lots of information at my fingertips that helps me do it quickly. Right? So just one thing I want to point out. You originally said you'd like to see a little bit more about the development environment. So let me give you a little bit more information here, a little bit of a bigger tour. Right? I've got 4 tabs. The first tab is data. This is where we call them entities. Essentially, they're tables, right? And these are tables within my application, or I can reference tables from other applications, or I can, as I said, I can reference data that lives outside the platform itself. Right? So this is what you do here. I've got some other things like session and structure, but you get the idea. Logic. I haven't shown you any of the logic and how you do programming. Just because the examples I did, I didn't really need to. This particular application is tied to Salesforce, as Mike said. Have you programmed against Salesforce before?
No, I have not.
Well, they have a web service API. And anyway, we've used some best practices here, and we synchronize with Salesforce to bring data that doesn't change up and down, do some caching, right? So if I told you, right, synchronize Salesforce account, from the main to the basic synchronized. So this was the first time you're looking at this screen. I don't think you've ever seen this before, right? But you can probably follow what's going on. Right? Something calls this to start it. It checks to see if the configuration is blank. If it is, it gives a feedback message, right? And then it ends. If it's not blank, we do a login. Then this is something written with Integration Studio, right? So somebody wrote a connection to Salesforce, and then I can use and drag and drop it. And then we start going through. This indicates a loop for each. C#, you're familiar with that. This is a SQL query. I can go in and look. This is we've got two types of SQL. This is one that the platform optimizes for you, or you can write one yourself. But you can see it gives some account information, and it assigns some variables, and create or update account. So what it's doing is it's looping through what's returned by Salesforce, updating some information, and then updating it locally. And then it does same for opportunities. So it's really easy to follow and see what's going on. So if I came up to you, if I hired you and you were working here and you needed to make this change, and I said, you know what, we synchronize with Salesforce. I know Stacy wrote this 6 months ago, but he's no longer here. We need to add 2 new fields and synchronize those. It'd be pretty straightforward for you to figure out how to do this, right? Add 2 extra fields, you know where to go, you'd be able to figure it out. If you go back to how you're doing stuff now, right, and we said, hey, look, I know Stacy wrote a function to do something, he's no longer here, look at it and make these updates. Heck, even if it's something you yourself wrote, probably you'd look at it and go, well, he didn't know what he was doing. After spending 3 days, I need to rewrite it to be able to do it right and fix it.
Yes.
So it keeps everybody in the same paradigm. So it makes all those changes and maintenance really easy. Within this logic area, you also do web services. Really easy to use web services. Do you do a lot with web services now?
Well, we use a lot of, we use ADP, payroll.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I've actually written a program that syncs our employees to custom database that we developed, and then basically keeps everything in sync with all of our other like user names and different systems, including Active Directory. So yes, I've used web services. I've been a consumer of web services. I've never developed too many web services myself. But I've been
so to consume a web service is really easy. If I knew a WSDL right now, I could say, hey, add a WSDL right there to add a web. And if you wanted to create one, right? So a lot of places we're finding are using the platform to build a good middle layer, right, to integrate to the various systems and expose the web service layer. So let's say I wanted to write a web service here. I'm going to call this a catalog web service. Then I'm going to add a method in here that says get product. And it's going to take the product ID, and this could be payroll, human resources, whatever, and it's going to return a product record, right? So a web service structure takes product ID, returns a product record. If I drag this product ID, it creates a query. It says, oh, well, product ID. You probably want a query to get a product by product ID. And then I'm going to assign my output variable to the results of the query. I now have a web service that takes a product ID and returns the product, right? So, and that would be available to anybody that has access to this platform, right? So, just it's that quickly. And that gives you an idea of how I would do a little bit of other logic.
I would probably use web services more if I had this tool.
It makes it really, really easy. The interface layer it's where you do your front end. So this is an application that was built with the OutSystems platform. This is HTML5, CSS3. It can look like anything you want it to. Right? If I click here, this is the CSS editor. Right, so London is my aim, and then I've got my application right here, and then I've got my page, and I can go in and add a I like to preface this by saying I'm not a designer, so I probably wouldn't create something that says background color pink, but just so you can get the idea, right? I'm not saying that makes good sense to do, but you could do it, right?
Wow.
And there's a drag and drop and configure all sorts of things. You've got access to widgets on the screen, and if you look here, it's got my orders, orders to approve, and orders to validate. But when Mike was showing you the application, you saw just my orders. And I logged in as a different user, and I see orders to approve. That's handled over here. So we've got a logic component on the screen that says, am I a sales rep? If true, show my orders. Am I a sales manager? If true, shows this. And the other type of role is a finance approver, and so it shows the bottom line. Right? So you can do all sorts of logic on the screen. Screens have actions behind them. So again, the dashboard screen does all sorts of things when it's loading to get data to be able to load on the screen, right? So think of it as a page load. And then the last tab in the development environment is processes. We didn't even talk about that, but we have human-based business processes that you can manage in the system. In this sample application, we've got order fulfillment. I do want to do a time check here. It's 11:56 now. This is scheduled till 12. Do we have a hard stop? What kind of?
We do, unfortunately, but I've got to say that I definitely want to continue. I don't know exactly where we go from here. I'm sold.